Maharaja, thank you for having me. Nellapalachan was my first priest. You followed me the first priest because my family we were all going. All Pranay families were going to St. Peter's until the Pranay Church was formed, and then only afterwards Thomas Michael came. So Nellapalachan was my first priest, and yeah, I always consider my first home in St. Peter's Church. Yeah. So I don't feel like I'm a stranger or a guest at this my house. Really good to see everybody. I've seen most of you, except maybe you guys were a little bit younger when I saw you. At least the youth my age and older, I know very well, and the younger youth, some of them, and then now I remember your faces, but you're a little bit younger when I saw you. Yeah. So, how was last night? You guys enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Nice. I saw some videos and pictures of the bonfire. I wanted to join you, but so I live in Syria, so I'm only here for 1 month, and I'm going back. So last time I came, when I left the U.S. it was 2022, July. So it's been like 3 years since I have been to the U.S. So yeah, but it's good to be with you all during my vacation here. That this worked out. As Stacey just said, this was God's timing that I was able to come. I was here in the Chicago area when you guys had this conference. Yeah. I think maybe the second part I will speak more about my calling. The first part I will talk about what is the calling and what is God's will and how we can discern that. The conference theme is Own the Light. So I know George was speaking about the light and what does that mean, owning the light and living the light. And also, I'll talk about calling. And then in the second part, I'll talk about my own calling and how God called me to this, to be a monk in Syria. So maybe you've seen this statistic before. So we make about 35 decisions every day, right? From the moment we get up, what are the decisions that we make? What's the first decision that we make when we wake up? Yeah. Getting out of bed. Yeah. Snoozing the alarm, sleeping longer, or getting out of bed and starting our day. That's the first decision that we make. And then throughout the day, you see 2,000 per hour. Every 2 seconds, we make a decision. Whether we scratch our head sometimes, or small little decisions or big decisions, we make 35,000 decisions per day. Right? And how do we make these decisions? Some of them are involuntarily or muscle memory, our habits, but some of them are conscious decisions. Okay, today I'm going to go to the conference. For example, you all made the decision to go to the conference today. This weekend, there are others who didn't decide to go. So it's all our own will, our free will that God has given us. So these are all decisions that we make every day. Okay, so those are daily decisions. Usually daily decisions are not, they're little decisions that we make. Sometimes very minute little things that we do every day. Should I brush my teeth? Should I not brush my teeth? Of course, I brush my teeth, but And then there's life decisions. This is the second part. I will talk a little bit more about how to make a life decision. But life decisions. When do you start? Usually, what's the first step of a life decision? What do you guys think? In your life, when is a life decision? What's the first step of making a life decision? What college to go to, maybe? That's a life decision, right? What major to major, what your career should be, and then where to work, who to marry. These are really big life decisions, right? And so you'll be stuck like this man on the left and right. And sometimes it's difficult to know what to do in life, what should I do with my life? How should I proceed? In what direction or what direction? So we'll go through how we can decide where to go, how to discern God's calling, God's will for us, But it can be different. It can be difficult, whether to go left or right. And sometimes we need to, we will go through that process of how to make these decisions and how to know if it's God's will or not God's will. Okay, these are basic decision-making steps. Does the decision need to be made? We have to stop and think before we act. Is this a healthy decision? Do you need help with this decision? Who can help? How can we get help? And who can help? What choices do we have? What are the possible outcomes for each decision? Are we going to be happy with the result of our decision? So it goes with all our life decisions. We will, to what college we go to, school, where do we work, who do we marry, how many kids we want, what kind of life do we want to live. Do we want to be religious, not religious? Do we want to go to church every Sunday? Do we not want? These are all decisions that we have to make ourselves, and God gives us the free will to do that. Do you know this prayer on the right? Does it look familiar? Do you know what language it is? It's Syriac, yeah. It's the Lord's Prayer. I think you guys have learned it maybe. Or at least the young kids, like yesterday, they said they know our English. So in the Lord's Prayer, it was taught by who? Taught by the Lord, right? Jesus said, the disciples asked, how do we pray? And Jesus said, you pray like this, and then he said, Our Father, who is in heaven, your name is holy, your kingdom come, and let Nenwe Sevionos, your will be done. Okay? In Syriac, Seviono, will. Your will be done. What is will? What is will? It's like, will is like, what do you want? I will do this, I will do that. Right? What does God want? So, your will be done. Many times we say, my will be done. My will be done. I want to do this. Especially, our parents might say, don't go out tonight. And we say, no, if I want to go, it's my decision, right? But, so we have this conflict. My will versus God's will versus my parents' will versus, other things, okay? God's will. What is God's will? What is my will? What is the evil one's will? What is others' will in my life? Okay? And God has given us free will. We'll talk about that. God has given us free will. He has created us to have free will, so we can decide what we want to do in life. And it's not like you can do anything you want. Like people ask me, as a monk, what can you do? What can't you do? For a monk, I can do anything I want, but I choose out of my free will to do this, because it's God's plan. Right? Okay? And so you see there's, these are long-term consequences of daily decisions or life decisions that we make. Scrolling on social media, you see, there's on-demand joy at first, and then when we become addicted, then it becomes a distraction, procrastination, then it'll lead us to social isolation, anxiety disorder. So we can choose whatever we want, right? But there's always consequences to whatever decision we make. If we drink alcohol, sometimes it's relaxing, but then we can depend on it, intoxicated, and then we can have liver damage, alcoholism. The same, eating fast foods, we exercise, the same. It's a pleasure at first, but then it can lead to health problems. Like impulse buying, going on Amazon. In Syria we don't have Amazon. But here, it's so easy to click a button to buy something. You get satisfaction waiting for the package, receiving the package, opening it, and you get it, and you get happy, and then after a while, you see the trends on TikTok, they end, and then you're like, I don't have anything use for this anymore, and so you just, and then you start, getting debt, and if you don't have balance, your bank account might be zero because you're buying so much. So my will, what do you guys see in this picture? Change to a big ball, right? So usually, when we think it's my will, what can if I want, I have my car, I can go anywhere I want, I can do whatever I want. It's freedom, but this is not freedom, real freedom, right? When we do our will against God's will, against our parents' will, this is really not freedom. We think it's freedom. I have my car, I can go anywhere I want, I can do whatever I want, I can buy whatever. But really, like you saw in the previous slide, these make you a slave to that sin. It makes you a slave to your will. You're not free anymore. And so you see, like this person, he's doing his will. He was so happy, but then now look, this big ball is selfishness. It's always my will, hurting others. He's isolated alone, right? Because he's doing my will. The parents they have separated from him. They say, okay, he wants to do his will. We will respect that, and we will, also friends, family. When you say, no, I want to do this, if you're selfish, then you will be a slave to yourself, only doing my will and my will. Others' wills. So we have our own will, and we can decide what to do. And others, sometimes we can listen to others. Okay, there's two. One is this is peer pressure, right? Like there's a picture. Please come on, go on, do it. Okay? There's others' wills. Sometimes other people they want to impose their peer pressuring us in a negative way to do to do whatever they're asking of us. Whether they're asking us to do something good or they're asking us to do something bad. Take out the car, go at night, whatever it may be. Other people's will. It's difficult sometimes. We want to do other people's will just to please them, to look cool. But sometimes we're uncomfortable, but then we do it anyway, and there's consequences for that, right? And others, sometimes it's good, like doing someone else's will. He said, hey, like, this boy is comforting the young boy to this other boy who's crying. So we can be also doing positive peer pressure too. The boy crying, he was maybe sitting on the road crying by himself. And it was his will, the other person's will that he came and comforted him. And so it was a comfort to him. So it works as a double-edged sword. Sometimes listening to others' wills is good thing, like to be comforted, to get advice and things like that. Get advice and listen to that advice and do that advice. Or if we only say my will, then it'll be very difficult. Or if we do other people's wills without discernment, it'll also be very difficult because then we will lose our identity. We will do whatever. We will live for others, not for God. Okay. Then we have the evil one's will, Satan's will, the devil's will. You see in the top corner what is that thing that's wrapped around the tree? Yeah, the serpent, right? In the book of Genesis, right? So the book of Genesis, we all know the story. The evil one wanted to do his will. So Adam and Eve, when they were in the garden, they were fully united with God, walking with God, tending to the garden. And it was actually paradise, right? Like we say, oh, this ice cream tastes like heaven, but it was actually heaven. Right? So it was actually heaven. And they were living the best. But God said, God had one commandment for them not to do, which was, don't eat of this food. As kids, as children, like when our parents say, don't do this, like we have our scheming nature, like, oh, we want to do it more. Like we want to just, it's the same, like a cookie from a cookie jar. If our parents say you can eat as you like, we'll eat it, it will taste the same. But when our parents say don't eat it, it'll taste that more good. Why? It's the same cookie. But it's just because of our rebellious nature, it'll taste like we're doing something secret or something wrong. So in the same way, Adam and Eve, when the serpent, the devil, said eat that fruit, it was so tempting for them. So then they ate it, right? But what happened? They thought that they would have paradise, they would be like God. But when that ended happening, they separated themselves from God and they were kicked out of the garden. You see this icon of the angel kicking them out of the garden. And so their life, choosing the evil one's will, choosing God's will, it was paradise. But choosing the evil one's will kicked them out of the garden, and then they had to start working. They had pain, they had suffering, they had sin, they had death. And so it was very difficult. Uh, the thief comes only to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And Jesus says, I have come that you may have life, have it in abundance or full. So the thief is always deceiving. Right? Other people can also be deceiving. So we have to have discernment, and we'll talk about that, to know if another person is inspired by the devil, telling us to do something wrong, evil. So we have to have discernment to say, okay, that is right, that is wrong. And the fruit of the Holy Spirit, God has created us. In the garden, Adam and Eve had all these in the bottom: humility, meekness, chastity, kindness, temperance, generosity, diligence. These are the marks of a human being. But then, a fallen human being as we are, we go to the opposite. We have pride, we have anger, we have lust, we have envy, we have gluttony, we have anger, the love of money, sloth, laziness. And so these, the passions, the 7 deadly passions, when we do it, it's really fun, it's really nice at the beginning, we get that temporary pleasure. But then at the end, we go into all of these. No one wants to be hatred, no one wants to be... I'll tell you a story. 4 weeks ago, I was stopped by 3 terrorists. I was driving down the mountain from my monastery, which is on a mountain, 7,000 feet above the sea level. And I was driving down. And usually there's no checkpoint, there's no military, nothing. But 3 terrorists were holding guns and stopped me. And they said, we will kill you, you have to become Muslim or die. And I felt a lot of compassion for them, right? I didn't feel fear, but I had a lot of compassion for them. Because they have so much hatred in their heart. No one wants to have hatred in their heart. No one wants to feel hatred. They had no peace in their heart. So I told them, I love you, really, I have so much love for you. I told them, I'm really sad that you don't have hatred in your heart. And I want you to get peace. But they kept saying, we will kill you. They put the gun to my head and we will kill you. I said, if you want, you can kill me, I will forgive you, I will still love you. But then I told them, if you want, but I have to drive down, I have to go to the seminary to administer my final exam to the students. So I said, you can do whatever you want for me. I still love you, I will still forgive you. So, for example, these people, they think it's like, they get so happy when they put the gun to intimidate and, they have the power. I don't have any gun, I don't have anything, I just have the car, I stopped, if they want, they have all the power over me, But really, they don't have any power. They think they have the gun, they have all the power in the world, and they have no power. They're slaves to hatred. They're dying inside. They're suffering inside. So we see when we have all of us have this pride, anger, lust, envy, gluttony, avarice, love. This is not how God created us. These are ways that the devil tries to get us to get into despair, into depression. I'm lazy. I wish I could do better. And stuff. But with the help of the Holy Spirit, when we say, "Not my will be done, God's will be done. Your will be done, not my will," then God will help us in that. So we have to be careful of the evil one, and we have to discern: is this from God? Is this from the devil? Okay. This is the temptations of Christ. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus was in the desert for 40 days, right? And then after he fasted, he went. He was hungry, and then the devil appeared to him, right? And then he said, "What is the first one? What was the first temptation? Make these stones into bread, right? So the temptation for pleasure, regardless of the consequences. So, the second one was put up on the high mountain. You can have all this if you not worship me. The temptation for power, the need to control and dominate others. Right? These are all temptations that we want. It's nice to be some to have what we want, to be higher than other people in a position, for us to say you do this, to boss people around. It's nice. You feel in control, you can dominate. Right? And the last temptation was fall down, jump down, and the angels will catch you. So you cannot test the word of God. So the temptation for popularity, the need to be greater than God, self-idolatry. And so, like Jesus, we must avoid these trappings. So you have to be careful, like, what's my will, what's God's will. Sometimes my will is not God's will, it's the evil one's will, right? Ultimately, our will is either aligned with God or the devil. Or when we listen to people, it's either they're aligned with God or aligned with the devil. Sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's malicious. If you see here, then Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. So this is Matthew 16. We read this on the Kudashika Sunday, the first Sunday of the church calendar, where Jesus asked, "Who do you say I am?" And then the disciples, they had different suggestions. And Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Right? So Jesus, how did Jesus respond when Peter said, "You are the Christ"? You are Peter. You are the rock. I will build my church. The gates of Hades will not prevail. He exalted Saint Peter to such a high level, right? And then Jesus started saying, "I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to die." And then what did Jesus say right after? It says here, okay? God forbid, St. Peter said, "God forbid, Lord, no such thing shall ever happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle to me. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." Right? So Jesus literally calls Peter Satan. Why does he call Peter Satan? This is maybe a little bit a tough sentence, but we will. So Satan is the person that tries to separate Christ from the cross. Satan is the person that tries to separate Christ from the cross. So sin, and also Satan is the one who tries to separate us from our cross. Jesus tells we have to deny ourselves, take up our cross to go to salvation. There's no salvation without the cross. So if we try to escape whatever cross that God is giving us, whatever, sometimes the cross is never easy. Sometimes you have to marry this person, marrying is very difficult. You can ask people in marriage. Marriage is difficult. You're two different people coming together, and you have to take, that's your cross to bear. Raising children is also very difficult to bear. Being a Christian in this world is very difficult. Sometimes you have to make a lot of sacrifices. You can't be like your friends who are going around, doing whatever they want, sinning or whatever. We're called as Christians, we're set apart, we're holy. So Satan will try to separate Christ from the cross. He said, no, you don't have to suffer, you don't have to die. But if Christ didn't go on the cross, none of us would have salvation. We would not be, and also for us too. If we don't take up the cross that Christ has appointed for us, Christ will call us Satan, because we are not doing God's will. God's will is to go on the cross. For God was God's will, He went on the cross. It's also our will to go on the cross, to whatever suffering that we have. And in that suffering, God will exalt us and we will have salvation. So sin conceals itself in logic. St. Peter said, "Jesus, you're the King. You're the Messiah. Why do you have to suffer and die?" So sin, the devil will always try to confuse us in the mind, right? But God is in the heart. God is in the heart. Of course, God gives us mind and heart. We have to use both. But Satan tries to in logic, right? Oh, that doesn't make sense. Why would I? St. Peter says, why would you do that, Jesus? But God is beyond logic. Whatever the foolishness of God is greater than the most wisdom of man. That's what the scripture says. So sin conceals itself in logic, and so Satan tries his hardest for us not to deny ourselves, not to say, "Thy will be done, not I will," and take up our cross. So because he is trying to separate us from the cross. So what is God's will? Right? What is God's calling for us? God's calling for us is the cross. There is no other calling. It's the cross. We will suffer in this life. We will die in this life, but we will live as resurrected Christians. We will go a little bit further for that. So God's will. He answered. Jesus said in the Old Testament there was how many commandments? 10 commandments. 10 commandments, right? And Jesus summed it to 2. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? So this is a human being. To love God and to love your neighbor. This is Adam and Eve in the garden. They loved God with all their heart. They loved each other and the animal and the whole creation with all their heart. But then, because of sin, because of selfishness, I want my will, that separated us. So we separated ourselves from God. We separated us, and then we see what happened. Who killed who? After Adam and Eve? Cain killed Abel, right? So that's hatred, right? They killed each other. Cain killed Abel, and that's hate. Literally the opposite of love. Killing the other person out of hatred, out of jealousy, right? So this is God's will for us to love God and love man with all our heart. And also, no one has greater love than this, that someone would lay down his life for his friend. Or another, Jesus took the bullet for me. Jesus took the bullet for me. We have this modern saying. So we also have to love everyone so much that we are willing to lay down our life. When we are selfish, we will not have salvation, and others will not have salvation. We will all go down together. But when we lay our life, when we love God and love others so much that we're willing to say, not my will. I'm not trying to preserve my life. Jesus said that, right? If you want to lose your life, if you want to save your life, you have to lose it. If you try to save your life, preserve your life, you will lose it. So it's the opposite. Christianity is paradoxical. In order to live your life, you have to lose it. If you want to live your life, you will lose it. You will lose your life. So you have to, out of love, you have to lay down your life for God. Whatever God says, thy will be done. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Not my will, your will. And in doing so, that's the will of God. How do we do God's will? Just doing this, loving God, loving others. Until death. Doing it to the point that we would take a bullet for someone. We would lay down our life for God. Right? Easily, I could have been scared 3 weeks ago. I could have been scared. But for what? I know everyone's going to die anyway. Why would I deny my faith to do that? Really, I had so much compassion for those terrorists. I felt so sad and sorry for them. They were brainwashed from childhood. They were in the camps. They didn't see anything else. They don't know anything else, right? So I pray for them. And actually, after the old Syrian government left, this province called Idlib, which was the new government, they come from this. They're all this terrorist mindset people. So then they are the ones that liberated the country from the old government. So in January, so now people are coming from Idlib to Damascus to see the city for the first time because they were isolated. So one of the youth, his name is William, he's Muslim, born and raised Muslim in this Idlib country. He has no idea about Christians, no idea about anything. He saw one of our monks shouting, and he just came up to him and said, you have so much peace in your heart. Like the way you walk, you have so much peace. I don't have that peace. And he shared his childhood traumas and being in these camps, and he's like, I have so much hatred and anger. I just want love, I want peace, and you have that. And so slowly, the monastery, we started catechizing him, teaching him the faith, and on Lazarus Saturday before Easter, he was baptized. But obviously, in Syria, it's secret baptism, so he's a secret Christian. So no one knows about it. Not even his family. He went back to his family. I tried to give him a little cross. And he said, Father, I cannot. If my family's here, they will kill me. Because it's part of their tradition, their religion. That if someone converts from Islam to Christianity, they have to stone them like that. So you can imagine that for him, he's risking his whole life. But for him, Christ is everything. And for us, it's so easy for us to get up in the morning on Sunday and say, it's raining, it's snowing, I'm tired, I'm not going to church today. Right? But for Syrians, especially during the wartime, these secret Christians, they risk literally their life they lie to their family, think, I need to go here, or I have to work this day. They go to church privately, and they come back. Right? Even during the war, when the bombs were being placed all over Syria, families didn't know if they would be going to church, they would be killed, or on the way back from church they would be killed. But it was worth it. It was all worth it for them, because living a life for themselves is going to lead to death. But living a life for God, receiving Qurbana on Sunday, sacrificing their life for the church, for Christ and the church, that's all worth it. Because we will all die. We will all die, but it's just a matter of how we live our life. So I'll get to the next point. This is we say this in monastic life all the time in monasteries. If you die before you die, when you die, you won't die. If you die before you die, then you won't die when you die. What does that mean? It's really deep, actually. So if you die to your will, now, if you say, God, I want to live for you, not for myself, because we saw when we live for ourselves, we're like this man shackled with this big ball, with this big weight. We won't go. Saint Dorotheus of Gaza, he says that when someone is swimming, if you try to swim through the waves in the ocean, you won't get anywhere. Why? If you try to swim through the waves, you will just keep going back and back and back. You will not make any progress. And see, he was saying, this is our pride. God has given us these waves, and we're trying to fight God. We're trying to fight these waves. And in doing so, we will never have spiritual progress. We will go back and back and back. But there's St. Dorotheus of Gaza says, if you humble yourself, go down, then you can make progress, because you're going underneath the waves and you can go out, you can come out. So in the spiritual life, and God showed us, if you become humble, if you die to yourself, if you die to your pride, your ego, you die to your will, and say, thy will be done, Lord, then you can make progress in the spiritual life. But if you because remember, I said God has appointed crosses for us. God has appointed trials and tribulations for us. These are the waves. If we keep trying to fight God, we will just keep going back and back and back. We will never go forward. God is the Malfono Rabo, Saint Cyril, the big Malpan, the great teacher. In this life, He's giving us opportunities for us to, He's giving us crosses so that we can have salvation, that we can grow, we can learn from mistakes, from our mistakes, from challenges, from not relying on ourselves, relying on God, relying on people appointed by God, our spiritual fathers, our parents, and things. So, but if we don't let go of our pride, we will continue to go back and back. We will be a slave to ourselves. But if we die before we die, like in Syria, this is what no one is afraid of death. No one is afraid of death because they've already died to their will. They say, God, your will be done, not my will be done. Right? And so if you die before you die, when you die, you won't die. Maybe, I don't know if you got it. It takes life experience to know Achin, and many. When God gives you these waves and you fight it, you will keep going back. But if you go humble yourself and you say, Lord, I am wrong. My husband, my wife, I am wrong. My kid, my child is right. They're right, I am wrong. When we say that, it's really difficult to say I am wrong. Like to say, please forgive me, I did wrong. It's really not difficult. But then we'll make progress in spiritual life. But we just have to go down. God came down from heaven to earth. He could have, established a kingdom on earth, and everything would be paradise here. But what did he do? No, he humbled himself. He was very simple. He was very simple. He rode on a donkey. He washed his disciples' feet. He died. He is the God of the universe, and he let people spit at him, curse at him, crucify him. He was killed. But yet, death had no, because he is God. He defeated death. So, as Christians, we have to go like Jesus. This is the way Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. But in order to be like Jesus, we have to die. We have to crucify. We have to crucify our sins, our passions. We have to say, not my will, thy will be done. So if you die before you die, then you won't die when you die. So if you die here, in this world, then in the next world you will be alive. And if you don't die in this world, and when you die, you won't be alive in the next life. So Christ is very clear. If you try to preserve your life, you are still going to die. If you lose your life for His sake, you will find it. So if we try to escape so in this world there will be many troubles. Jesus said that. In this world there will be many troubles. But take heart, I have overcome the world. So we have to lose our life in order and actively die to ourselves and live for God and live for others. We have to live for God and live for others. We have to actively die to our will, and we have to live for others. We have to live for others by dying to ourselves and living for God. Right? When we live for ourselves, we're not loving God, we're not loving others. Right? There's always selfish love. Right? Christ has showed us selfless love. Right? Selfless love is the cross. Selfless love is the cross. Okay? And then following God's will in the darkness. Following God's will in the darkness. So sometimes God will bring us to the darkness. Right? God will bring us to the darkness so that we have nothing else. So that we can choose. Like we can call upon God when we're at the bottom low of our life. Right? And sometimes we put ourselves in the darkness. Right? Our actions, our sins, we put ourselves in the darkness. Or sometimes God puts us in the darkness. It's all the same. God will allow us to be in the darkness. Sometimes in our Christian life, we feel God's love, God's hand, God's light so deep in our hearts. It's so light. But then later in life, we can't hear God's voice. It's so hard to hear God's voice. We don't know what to do. We feel like we're in darkness. God has abandoned us. And God has abandoned us. God does abandon us from time to time. He abandoned Jesus on the cross. Jesus said, my God, why have you abandoned me? I was forsaken. But God will never leave us alone ultimately. He will allow that time period for us to crucify ourselves, to say, not my will, thy will. I am wrong, you are right, God, I will do your will. And then he will bring us back to him. Okay? So Saint Gregory of Nyssa, he was born he was a church father in the 4th century. On his commentary on the life of Moses, he said, so he was commenting on Exodus 20:21. Moses entered the darkness and in this way saw God. So in the first revelation, when Moses first saw God, it was Moses sees God in the light of the burning bush. Right? So when we encounter God for the first time, usually it's like, wow, it's amazing. We're on fire for God, like it's honeymoon phase. Right? We have all this excitement, we have all this infatuation. It's like a relationship. But then, like especially your chachas, teachers, your uncles, aunties, the older, they will tell you the infatuation, it dies out. The love for your spouse, like that tingly feeling and everything, that will go out. Right? But then the real love begins when that goes out and you still love that person. Right? When you first date someone, oh, it feels so amazing, you have tingly feeling, you have infatuation, that's not real love. But when that dies out, then the real love begins. When you say, I will love this person anyway because this is the person God has appointed for me, for my salvation. And so we love selflessly, not selfishly. Because selfishly, we have all those feelings, it feels good, it pleasures us. But then God kills that infatuation back, And so then the real love begins. When you say, I'm stuck with this person because God loves them for my life, and I have to love them. So the true love is not these feelings, the true love is when we work on it. Okay? So in the same way, in the spiritual life, when Moses sees God, he sees God through light. He's like, wow, this is amazing, this bush is on fire, but it's not burning, and like he's talking, and like it's amazing, right? In the second theophany, the second encounter with God, however, Moses enters the darkness and thus sees God in that darkness. So, in life, God will allow us to go in darkness, right? And we won't see God's light. We won't hear God's calling. It's so difficult to hear God's light, God's calling, to even know it. Sometimes maybe God has abandoned us. We don't know if God is there. But we see, in that darkness, we can see God in that darkness. The whisper, the small candle that's in the darkness. Okay? So, it is in the darkness of ambiguity rather than in the light of clarity that one sees God. So, when everything is logical and light, you don't see God really. Okay, God will begin you with that because you're a baby. You need to have baby steps and milk. But then when you grow older, it is in the darkness. When you're confused, you don't know what to do in your life. You don't know where to turn. You can't hear God's voice. You're completely in the darkness. Then it is in the darkness of ambiguity when things are not clear, rather than in light of clarity one sees God. So this is how the spiritual life is. Yes, there are times where God will bring you in light, will feel amazing. And this is why many of my Protestant friends, they struggle a lot, because for them, their whole focus is on emotions. God touched my heart here, I felt this, and this, and like a different music and emotions. And they're relying on emotions, but we see in relationship, the emotions will fall out. That initial, all that will die out. There will be no emotion. But we have to decide, we have to love. And so the same way, we have to live, even when God allows us to be in the dark. We have to say, Lord, I put myself in the darkness. I kicked my son out of the garden. It was my choice, and I did that. But Lord, you can save me. Even on the cross, even though Jesus died, we thought we will also die in sometimes the pain and suffering and struggle. We will also die. But then God will raise us up. Jesus has defeated death. Jesus has gone to Sheol. All those people were waiting in the Old Testament. Jesus raised all of them up to the resurrection of judgment, the resurrection of paradise. So we just have to wait. God is the big teacher, the Manfono Rabo. So He is going to go take us on this journey called life. He will bring us through times of joy, times of growth, times of emotions, and times of utter darkness, times of difficulties. And remember, whatever struggles that God allows for us, it's for our salvation. It's called the salvific struggle. Whatever we struggle with, God has put that for us for a reason. But if we fight it in the waves, we will not go anywhere. When we humble ourselves, in the monasteries, in the desert, they asked a monk, "What do you do in the monastery?" He said, "We fall, we get back up again. We fall, we get back up again." That is life. Right? In the monastery, in Christianity, a Christian is someone who falls and then takes up his cross again and goes back again. And Jesus fell how many times? On the cross when he was on the way to the Golgotha? 3 times, right? So and also, right, Simon helped him to carry the cross. So we're not alone in carrying the cross. We will have to humble ourselves. Allah, I'm weak at this time. I need someone, I need a spiritual father to help me in this. Right? So this is the way how it is. Okay? There's a story from the 4th century, Saint Ambrose of Milan. Him and his deacon were traveling around Milan. Now we think of Milan, we think Italy. But at that time, it's countryside, it's villages. He's the bishop of Milan, Saint Ambrose. He's going from house to house visiting. And so he went to a farm owner. You can imagine how we're in a farm area. So he went to a farm owner and he's asking the farm owner, "How's your life? Tell me about your life." And he said, "Oh, thank God, life is good. God has blessed me richly. I have my children, I have grandchildren. We are so rich. God has given everything in abundance." And so he kept talking to him, right? And then Saint Ambrose told the deacon, "You have to leave from here. God is not here." I mean, that's so strange. This person said, "God has given me everything. He has blessed me so much. I have my children, my grandchildren. I have everything. I have no complaints. I have everything that I want and more." And then Saint Ambrose literally said, "We have to depart from here. God is not here." Why would he say that? It's really strange. But basically, Saint Ambrose discerned that this person kept fighting God. God kept giving him tests, giving him crosses, giving him waves, and he kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And he kept going back and back and kept fighting and fighting. Eventually, God dropped the waves. And he kept going. But he didn't progress in his spiritual life. He was just going, like an infinity pool or whatever. He didn't go. He was just going, He went to his limit where he thought it's enough to be happy. So I don't know if you got that, but so St. Ambrose is basically saying that God will not torture us. If we harden our hearts so much that we say we don't allow any cross, any challenge, but whatever God gives us, trial or tribulation, or struggle or challenge, if we don't accept that, if we keep not trying to get the life lessons learned from those processes, if we keep trying fighting, God will eventually leave us alone because He doesn't want to torture us. Right? So there's a saying: beware of any peace that you have without your cross. Beware of attaining any peace. That's a big red flag. Someone who is at peace, but they have not gone through any. Peace comes after the cross. Peace comes when you went through hell, and then you went, and then God saved you from hell. That's the real peace. So beware of any peace. Anyone will tell you in life, they're at peace only because they were in hell before. They knew rock bottom, and then anything after rock bottom is heaven for them, right? And so God allows us to go to rock bottom. But like this farm owner, he kept fighting with God. He didn't want to take any life lessons. So he's not really at peace. He's just living his life for himself. So he's really not at peace. But he just hardened his heart so much that he's just deceiving himself, saying, I have peace, I have everything, I have my grandchildren, my children, we have everything, we have no needs, nothing. He's so selfish. He's not thinking about the other poor people. He's not thinking about God. He's not thinking about anyone. So beware of any peace that you have, unless you can't have peace until you go into the darkness. That's the story. That's the moral. That's life. Once you go to the darkness, and then God will take you out of the darkness, and then you will have peace. So, in order to get peace, you have to take up your cross. In order to take that cross, so we can't be selfish. We can't say, I'm not going to get married. It's my life. I want to live my life. No, God has chosen us two callings: either to get married or to become a monastic. In the second part of the talk, I will talk about my own calling and how choosing God's calling for that. Are we good? We're going to take a break. Any questions so far? We're good? Okay. So there are two ways. There are, in order to hear God's calling, to live the call, we have to do two things. One is obedience. In Syriac, it's called Meshtan Ma'muf, obedience. Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, he went a little farther, fell on his face and prayed, saying, Oh, my Father, if it is be possible, let this cup pass away from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Not as you will. I mean, remember, Jesus, before going to Syria, I was like this. God, if you want to take this, because I know there's bombing and there's gunshots, very dangerous country. I did the same thing. I said, God, if let this cup pass from me, but nevertheless, not as I will, as you will, right? So obedience, right? We have to obey God. We have to obey Him. So, we have to be obedient, right? Jesus made himself of no reputation and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of man. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even death on the cross. So, remember, if you love me, what does Jesus say? If you love me, be obedient to me. Keep my commandments, right? That's true love. That's love in action. If you say you love your spouse, if you love your parents, if you love your children, but you're not obeying that, that's not true love. That's just mouth. You're just moving your mouth, saying, I love you, I love you. But when you're obedient, God showed us, He became obedient to God the Father. He came and suffered and died. He said, not my will, thy will. This is obedience, right? So we have to, in order to know God's will, we have to be obedient to God, right? Because if God says, this is my will for me, remember what happened to Jonah, right? Jonah was disobedient. And what happened? A whale swallowed him. Funny story, when I was in Alaska a few years ago, I was kayaking in an Alaskan bay, and there was Yeah, before I came. That was before I moved to Syria. At that time I was thinking, God put this in my heart, but I was like, no, I'll stay in America for a little longer. So I was actually afraid that the whale was going to swallow me up. So Jonah, God called Jonah to do something really difficult, to go to Nineveh and to preach, right? And Jonah was like, I'm not going to go there. They're going to kill me. That's like a kingdom. I'm a Jew. That's a Gentile nation. Why would I go there? Yeah. And so he tried to flee to Tarshish. He tried to flee away from God. And what happened? The whale swallowed up Jonah. God appointed a whale to swallow up Jonah. So, see, if Jonah's heart was so hardened, God would leave him alone. God would say, go to Tarshish, live your life, that's it. But we would not, the city of Nineveh, would not be God's plan today, right? We still have Syriac Orthodox people living in Nineveh. That is because of Jonah's obedience to God. Otherwise, they would not be Christians today. They would not be repentant and lived God's way. So, in those 3 days in the whale, in the darkness of the whale, Jonah reflected, he prayed, he realized that not my will, thy will be done. Afterwards, the whale spat him out, and then he had full peace. God is with me. I will go to Nineveh, I will preach. Even though whatever happens, I will be at peace because I'm doing God's will. And I'm listening to God's will. So we have to be obedient to God. Sometimes, if our heart, thank God, if our heart is not that hardened so much, God will try our best. He will appoint some kind of whale. He will appoint something for us to stop in our tracks, to be in the darkness and to think and to reflect, right? And then, if we say yes, we can do God's will. If we say no so much, God will still allow us to be swallowed. He will allow the whale to spit us out, and we can live our way, because we have free will, right? True love is when you decide, I love, right? That's why I said true love, when the infatuation fades, that true love is when you make the decision. I love because it's my decision. I am loving this person, right? So we have to be obedient. In order to love God and love others, we have to be obedient to God. We have to be obedient to others. So obedience is really important. In the monastery, we say, obedience is everything. Whatever my brother says, I will obey, because I know that God has appointed him for my salvation. So the same way, you can see in the next slide, we have to obey our earthly and spiritual elders. And this is from the Old Testament and the New Testament. Children, obey your parents and everything, for this is the Lord. So we have to obey. When we obey God, when we obey our parents, when we obey our spiritual fathers, whatever they're saying is for our good, because they love us. They want us to do God's will in our life, to live the call, right? But if we reject the call, right, then we will be a slave to our will. We will be suffering. We will have no peace, right? We will live our life, but deep down we will be a slave. We will not have peace. But when we live the call, when we say, not your will be done, not my will be done. When we obey God's calling, when we obey our parents, our spiritual fathers and elders, then that's true love. Then we have true love in our heart, and we can give that love and light to others. And the last thing that we need to have is photoshoot, this discernment. How can I discern God's calling in my life? Okay? So you see this monk or this priest is praying, the priest is praying in the church, right? So he's asking God, what should I do? People ask all the time, how do you know God's will? How can I know God's will in my life? How can I know God's calling in my life? Most of the time, God is not going to call us in a voice or in a dream and say, this is what I want you to do. No. He wants us to put our trust in Him, to guide Him, to listen to His voice. So this priest is doing this. Neighbor, he's in the church, he's offering to God. This priest already knows what God's will is, but he's offering to God his spiritual children's whatever they want. He's offering that to God. Sometimes our youth can be in a decision. Especially like our college age youth. Sometimes they start dating a Muslim or Hindu, and they have very much difficulty. They're like, do I want to? I love this person, but like they're asking me to convert to Hinduism, to Islam, to reject Christianity, or I can, So I mean, this is just one example. There's really hard decisions to make in life. Sometimes we have to say, is this my will or is this God's will? Right? If we say God's will, then it will be blessed. If it's my will, then we will be left. God will keep trying to bring us back to Him. But if we harden our hearts so much, God will leave us alone. He will say, okay, you live your life. And that's what is happening. So we need to have discernment. How to discern God's calling in our life. So how do we discern God's calling? Right? You try to struggle in your life. You try to live a very Christian life. Whatever you're struggling with, you give it to God. You say, not my will, thy will be done. You try to be humble. You're obedient to your spiritual fathers and your spiritual, your parents. Right? And then you come up with the best decision that you can. If you don't know what career you want to do, you come up, you look inside, you reflect deeply, try to see what is God calling for me. Does God want me to be what does God want me to be in my career? Or who does God want me to marry? Or what does God want me to do in work? How can I help the world? How can I help others? How can I be a blessing to the world? So we have to sit like this priest and pray in front of God and ask God how, and then we make the best decision that we make, asking our advice from people and praying and discerning. And then we say, God, this is the best decision I have made. I'm giving it to you. Now bless it. May this be your will for me. Right? God will never tell us, this is what I want you to do. I want you to be a neonatal nurse. He's not going to tell you that. Right? God has given you in your heart. God has already placed that in your heart, whatever God's calling is. Sometimes it's not so evident, and so you have to keep praying, you have to keep discerning, you have to keep struggling. God will bring you ups and downs, and through those ups and downs, God will teach you life lessons. And you have to ask your priest, you have to ask your parents, get advice, be obedient, and then God will help you. And at the same time, we have to have discernment. What is right, what is wrong. Jesus said, be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So we have to use both our mind and our heart. We have to use both. We have to come up with the best decision, and then say, God, this is the decision, best decision I made after loving you, after obeying you, after seeking advice from my spiritual fathers, my parents, many people. This is the best decision. Now I ask you to bless me. This be your will for my life. So that's how we discern God's call. Discernment. So this is really, really important. And King David, so after King David stepped down from the throne, and Solomon, his young child, became king, God, you can see in the chapter, in verse 5. At Gibeon, Gibeon was the place where the Lord offered offerings to God. So God appeared. So at Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Whatever you ask, I will give it. Whatever you ask, I will give it." Okay? And Solomon said, "You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant, my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and uprightness of heart before you. And you have kept from him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne today. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. Although I am only a little child, I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of the people whom you have chosen, great people so numerous they cannot be numbered or counted." So Solomon is really confused, and he's just king, he's a child, he doesn't know how to lead a nation. And God is saying, whatever you ask, I will give. And what does he ask for? Okay? "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind," Solomon is talking about, "to govern your people, able to discern between good and evil. For who can govern this great people of yours?" So he asks God just for wisdom. He asks God for discernment, to discern what is good and what is evil, to have an understanding mind. And then it pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this. God said to him, "Because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life, riches, or for the life of your enemies your enemies to be killed. But you have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, to ask for discernment, to ask for wisdom. I now do according to your word. Indeed, I give you a wise and discerning mind. No one like you has been before you, and no one like you shall arise after you. Okay? I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor all of your life. No other king shall compare with you. If you walk in my ways, keeping my commandments, statutes, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your life. Okay? Then Solomon awoke in a dream and studied as king with wisdom. So this is what we have to do, brothers and sisters. We have to ask God for wisdom. We have to ask God for discernment. We have to be obedient, and we have to ask God for discernment, for wisdom. And in doing that, we can live the call. We can not reject the call, but we can live the call. We can live God's calling for us. And remember, God's calling, when you do God's calling in your life, you have the most peace. You have the most joy. Because this is heavenly peace. This is not earthly rewarding. This is heavenly rewarding. So when you do God's calling in your life, when you don't reject the call of being a husband, being a parent, when times get tough, you don't reject that call, you don't run away, and you say, God, this is where you want me to be, you will help me, then God will give you the peace, God will give you the joy. You will be in the light. Right? So first you have to be in the darkness, and then in order to be in the light, and you can share that with others. Any questions? Okay. So now I just want to show you some of the pictures of the monastery. We can, anything. Okay, quick break, yeah. Okay. Quick break, and then I will show you pictures of the monastery. I'll show you my puppies and the life in Syria. Let's share a little bit about my calling. A little bit about my story. As I said, so I grew up in your church when I was a baby and really little. And then, so I was born in Elmhurst, Illinois. My mother was working at Elmhurst Memorial Hospital, so that's why I was born there. But then we lived in Chicago for a few years, and then we moved to Glendale Heights. And I lived there until 4th grade. And then after Glendale Heights, then we moved to Roselle, Illinois. So I went to the Lake Park High School, played tennis, and did different clubs and stuff. I was always involved in church, like most of you. Like my parents we were always the first ones to come to church, the first ones to leave church. So I always loved the church really much. So my church was St. Mary's in Waukegan. So that church was really special to me. It was my home church, and it was really, my love. I always wanted to be at church. So, when I was 10 years old, I became an altar boy. I also attended retreats like you guys. I was sitting down in the same, everyone else remembers me when I was little, like sitting in these pews in the Cabrini's retreat center, and so when I was kids, like we did this, Chicago regional summer conferences, and so I attended. I still have some of those notebooks from 20 years ago, maybe more than 20 years. Yeah. So eventually, I kept going to these conferences, involved in my church, involved in the youth, going to the conferences, and visiting St. Peter's, St. George, St. Mary's at the time before, so visiting all the churches, the Syrian churches too. So it was nice. I had a nice community. We have a good group of people in Chicago, people, circle of people in Chicago. So at the age of 14, I started feeling like God was calling me to ministry. So then I kept praying about it. I felt like this was my calling to become a chamajan at the time. That's what I thought I wanted to do. So I approached the bishop. I approached the priest first, Thomas Nicotachin, and I told him this is what I feel. So then he approached the bishop. Then I had a meeting with the bishop, and then the bishop said, okay, even though I was really young, he decided, okay, you can be the warrior. with Naveed Chamath now. So I became ordained at 15 years old, so I was in 10th grade when I became a warrior. And yeah, so I was still a youth, I still went to Sunday school and things like that, but still, like, I was, just separated, dedicated for a more consecrated service for the church. And during college time, I was afraid of where to go, so I was afraid of going to a party school and getting lost there, or like feeling isolated alone there. And I started going to these Chamachans camps. I think maybe Chamachan and Sivan Chamachan, they went to these Chamachans camps a few weeks ago. So I started going to these, and I got some nice Chamachan friends, and I got some advice like, go to a Christian school instead of going to, just so that you won't feel isolated or alone. So I went to a school nearby called Trinity International University, TIU for short. You pass it on the way to Wisconsin. So it's like south of 65 things. So it was a nice school. It was a small school, and I studied there. At that time, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied biology, and then I did a dual degree in bioethics as well, master's in bioethics. So I did my MCAT. I applied at just one school, which was Rosalind Franklin, if you guys know. It was next to, my school had a partnership with that school, so with the biology program. So yes, and then I got accepted in the program, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be a doctor, and I'll just do that. But then God kept placing in my heart that I had to be a seminary. And so that was a difficult decision for me. Like, I always, from the age of kindergarten, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be married. You can see how background I have. I thought I was going to be, but God had different plans. Also, during that time, I was dating a girl, a girl from Houston. She's, my first cousin's first cousin, basically. So from 8th grade until first year of college, we dated. So it was a long time. I mean, it was, a high school relationship. And then, like, whenever I could, I would go to Houston, and, especially like junior school, college, she would come to Chicago. We both have family members. So that's what I thought. Like, I thought I was going to go to medical school, become a doctor, and marry her, become, we would have family life together, possibly become an actor down the line. But I wasn't really sure how that was going to work. But God kept pushing in my heart that God wants me to go to seminary on one side, and God wants to make me a monk on the other side. So it was really difficult. It didn't really make sense because I was dating a really faithful, good girl. She's really faithful. She would accept it, like, even if I become an actor later down, she would accept me in Coachella and stuff like that. All girls cannot do that, so it's pretty difficult. And also at the same time, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I was studying for that. I studied really hard to get into medical school to start with that. And but God had different plans. So God, slowly, He kept putting this thought in my mind that my calling is different. My calling is to go to seminary, become a monk, and things like that. And so it kept fostering in my heart. It kept growing in my heart, and I kept putting it aside. No, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. But then it kept growing in my heart, and I couldn't. I just felt God was calling me so hard that this was God's calling for me. So that, over a year of conversations with my girlfriend at the time, we decided to part ways. It was her, she had the strength to say, like, this is, who am I to be separated from God's will? So she made that hard decision. I was so guilty, I couldn't. So she said, be with God, this is God's calling for you. It's better this way. And so that I started consecrating my life, starting the single life at that point to see explore that calling. At the same time, I went to seminary, so I went to, we're on Nisha can study, so I'm not studying now. I studied at St. Vladimir, so I went from Chicago area, so from Roselle area, to New York. So I lived in New York for 6 years. For for 4 years I studied at seminary there, I did 2 degrees there. And seminary was the best place in my life. It was really a formative time. I learned so much there. I got brothers for life there. I was able to discern and pray. I was in the dark moments. God took His hand. I was really in darkness, and through that darkness, God took me to the light, ups and downs. It was really beautiful. And then 2 years, I worked as a chaplain for hospice. So I worked in hospitals and hospice. So although I kind of fulfilled that calling too, like I thought I was going to be a physical, biological doctor, but I ended up being a spiritual doctor. So it was really nice. I did training throughout my seminary summers, and then after I graduated, Anisha was also a chaplain. So I think you heard stories from him. So I worked for 2 years in New York. I lived by myself. I lived in Bear Mountain. It's a really beautiful area if you know the area in New York. And so yeah, I worked for 2 years, really did beautiful work, spiritually ministering to dying patients and their families. And yeah, it was really, really nice work, really beloved work. And so at that time I thought, okay, maybe I'll be a celibate priest. I'll work for a few years, and then when I'm 30 years old, I'll become a consultant when I'm ready. I'll be a celibate priest. I'll have a parish nearby, live by myself. And live by myself, be a celibate priest, and serve the church like that. But then God put another thought on me that we're not meant to be alone. So God has, and the church traditionally the church only has 2 callings. One is to be married and live that life, or to be a monk or nun in that life. So there's no celibate priesthood, or there's no in between traditionally in the church. So for those who are called to marriage, that's your cross. We say there's 2 paths to salvation. One is marriage, one is monasticism. But there's only one path, which is martyrdom, right? Like when in marriage, you're crowned. You are put crowning on your head, and the crown signifies that you are becoming martyrs, right? Also for me, I also have a crown here in the back. You can see here. This is the crown of thorns. So this is also my crown. Usually for marriage, you can wear the crown. You wear the crown just for the marriage, and then you get the mala. At least you can wear that for the rest of your life. And then for me, I have the crown of thorns here. So I wear this is my martyrdom, right? So remember, I said there's only one road, and that's the road to the cross. And after the cross is resurrection, salvation. So there's only 2 ways. Marriage is really difficult. Monasticism is also really difficult. But this is how life is, right? In order to get salvation, we need to take up a cross. To raise a family is not easy. To love your husband, your spouse, love your children, even though they're disobedient, they're selfish. You have to love them anyway, and you have to know that God is calling you. We have a saying in Alaska, my brother will say, when I see my brother or nun, they'll see their sister, or husband will see the wife, or wife will see husband. Children, my husband, my wife, my brother, my sister, my children will save me. So they will push my patience, they will push my buttons, and I have to be patient, I have to love them, I have to be humble, I have to ask for forgiveness. So this is the way to salvation, right? So at that time I felt like, no, I can't be a celibate priest, I can't live by myself for the rest of my life. I have no accountability. I need to have brothers when I'm struggling, I need to go to them. I can't just pick up the phone, I need to be in community to live. Right? And that's why God said, it is not good for a man to be alone, he must, I will appoint for a helper, right? So we have to always live in a community. That's why it's good we have to stay with our parents. It's okay when we move out of the house and stuff, or in college, or in the community, and it's okay, to discern. It's better to go back home, live with your family, or you can live in an apartment like I did, but it can't be permanent, right? You have to be actively looking for someone to marry, and then knowing that you're going to live with someone, because those are difficult years to live alone, and you'll be tested and you'll be tried a lot. So being in community, this is what God has called us to. God is also living in community. He is the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. He is the Trinity. So He's one God, but three persons. So, this is how we're meant to be. We're supposed to be in community always, not meant to be alone. So in that sense, so I decided, no, I can't be a celibate priest. I can't live by myself. one way to live. So then I started, then being a monk started coming to me. So then I felt this calling of being a monk started. It was really difficult for me, because I was like, okay, to be a monk, I don't know any monks, I've never seen a monk before, I have no idea what that means. So then I started visiting some monasteries in around New York, some Greek Orthodox, some Eastern Orthodox, some Oriental Orthodox monasteries. I started going there, seeing the life there. And then I also went to Sweden. I flew to Sweden. We have a new monastery there. So backing up before, in 2017 I went to Syria for the first time. It was like the worst time to go, but I felt like I had to go because I needed to see what monastery looks like, what does monasticism look like. I kept visiting other monasteries, but it's not the same. I wasn't I stayed there for a few days, but to see our own monastery, to see how that life would look like. So in 2017, when I was 22 years old, I went to Syria. I didn't tell my parents actually. I went to India for my cousin's wedding, and afterwards, I had a month-long stay in India. My parents were like, "Are you going to stay in India for 1 month?" I was like, but I was waiting for my visa because I didn't want to scare my parents. So I kept, because I was an American citizen, no Americans were going to Syria at the time. The war from 17, ISIS was there, everything. So 3 times my visa kept being denied. Then the patriarch called the president of Syria and told him that I will, he won't be kidnapped. I will take care of him and everything. So then I got special permission to go. So then I got the visa. I told my parents hey, I'm going to Syria. They're like, no, you're not. I said, the patriarch has given me the blessing to go. He arranged everything. I will be safe. Don't worry. So I went to Syria. I stayed there for 1 month. And I got to experience the monastic life there. I got to see everything. The first night I was there, I heard 39 bombs. I didn't realize what a bomb felt like. Right? And the first night I slept, the border, I had to be really careful. They said, make sure you don't show your American passport. You will be kidnapped. You have to be very secretly. You have to show everything. The government, the border people, they know that you're coming on behalf of the president and things. So I went to Syria. The first time I was staying in the monastery, I just in the middle of the night, the monastery was shaking, the bed was shaking, and it was I couldn't sleep. So instead of counting sheep, I was counting bombs. I counted 39. Yeah, that's at the beginning. Right? That's at the beginning. That was just me visiting. And another time, I almost died in Syria. That trip, I almost died. So I was going from, St. Paul got converted in Damascus, right? So I wanted to see the places where St. Paul fell off the horse, where Jesus appeared to him, saying, Saul, Saul, why you're persecuting me? And then he went to Ananias' house, he got converted, baptized. And so I wanted to visit, and also the head of St. John the Baptist also in Damascus. So I wanted to visit these 2 places. So as I was walking out of the patriarchate, one of the monk priests came out of nowhere. Where are you going? Where are you going? I said, I'm going to the place of St. Paul, and I'm going to the St. John the Baptist and coming back. He said, no, go to the place of St. John the Baptist, and then go to St. Paul, and go back. He said, it's the same, it's a circle. Right? He said, no, listen to me. He was going crazy. Listen to me, go this way, go this way. I said, okay, this monk is crazy. I don't remember this monk. So then anyway, when I was on the way to St. John the Baptist, when I was on the way, during the middle, there was a big bomb that happened. And that was a place in between the patriarch and St. Paul place. So if God didn't put that thought in the monk, 100%, I was on the way to walking there with my other Chamachan friend, we would have died for sure, 100%, right? We were literally about to walk, and then out of nowhere this monk came and said, he got angry. We thought he's crazy. It's a circle. It's the same, right? So then we're like, oh my gosh, God really saved us, right? If that didn't happen, how would we do it again? So it was, we heard the bomb, and it was fine. Some people died, fortunately. So then we visited the places, and then after that was fine. So then after that experience, I was like, do I really want to go to Syria, to be a monk? It was really difficult. At that time, working, graduating seminary, my dad started making calls. Chamachan is single, we have my daughter, things, and I kept getting proposals at that time, and then I'm like, no, God's calling is not for me to be married. I can't be a celibate priest, I can't do that. So my calling is to be a monk. And so I talked to the patriarch. I tried to convince him, hey, let's have a monastery in America, I'll be here. And he's like, no, come to Syria. Yeah. He's like, when you become a monk, you cut your will. You say, God's will be done, not my will be done. And you say, the patriarch, your will be done, not my will be done. So that was difficult. I had to cut my will. I had to say, okay, God, your will be done, not my will be done. So it took me, a few years to really process that. I went to, before I made the decision, I went to Sweden, to the monastery in Sweden. We have a new monastery in Sweden, so there's two monk brothers there. So I got to see their life and see how they were both born in Sweden, so a Western-born Syriac Orthodox Christian can become a monk. So I saw that, and I really liked how they lived their life. We had some very similar callings. And so then I said, okay, I will go to Syria. And the patriarch said, this is one-way ticket. Don't expect to come back, this is one-way ticket. You're giving your whole life to God. If God wants, God will do something. He'll make something here in America. But don't trust in God, don't think logically. Just obey God and say, God, your will be done on earth. So I did. So in 2022, August, in July, I quit my job in New York and moved back to Chicago for 1 month. Then I gave up everything and went to Syria. And moving to Syria, I've been there consistently for 3 years. It's been a very difficult life, as you can imagine. Every day hearing bombs and gunshots and being threatened, but really a blessed life. I feel God's hand calling me to be there, to minister, to live the monastic life, to pray for others. I have a lot of time for prayer. When you're working in the world, there's so many stress. And you get so swept up in little things so many addictions and so many bad habits, and you lose yourself in working and going back to your bad habits, and of course. And then so in Syria, it was really difficult at first, because I live on a mountain, there's no signal. I was so used to scrolling on social media or YouTube and then going to sleep, right? I was in my room, there's no signal, there's no internet, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no electricity. I'm just staring at the wall, how can I go to sleep? Slowly, you're oh, you can fill it with prayer. And then so your prayer increases, and people always ask you, pray for me, pray for me. I'm okay. As monks, we actually can pray for people. So for monks, for us, right now, I pray for 1,500 people a day. Not just saying their names, but I pray for them, their intentions, their suffering, their struggles, and offer that to God. So even though I don't have Wi-Fi with Wi-Fi, I feel a stronger connection to my brothers and sisters here in America because it's spiritual connection, because it's directly to God, and then I know their pain, their suffering, their struggle, and so you don't feel lonely because you feel so connected. Versus if you have access to everything and you don't talk to anyone, but being a monk, I don't feel lonely. I feel like I'm in America because every day from 3 to 5 a.m. we do these prayers, just praying for the world. So sometime around 3:30, I'm in North Lake in St. Peter's Church, praying, looking at the pews, praying for every single person. Then I go to St. George, and then I keep flying to different places and different houses, thinking people's struggles and offering prayers by name people. So I'll show you where I live. So you have to go out across the ocean. So you see here is Syria. So I live in a suburb. It's a suburb of Damascus. So from Damascus, I live here, which is in Satan. I live here, in between Elfita and Satan. So I will show you where I live. So I live on a mountain. It's 7,000 feet above sea level. Okay, so I don't know the highest altitude, highest mountain in Illinois. I don't think it's that high. Yeah, in New Jersey, I think the highest mountain is 700 feet. And everyone's wow, I'm climbing a mountain and things like that. So 7,000 feet. So I will show you some pictures and videos. So you can see here. So this is the monastery is here. This is the monastery. process that we have. So this is a new monastery that the patriarch is building. It's still building, like only 1/4 is done. I live with 5 brothers and 1 novice. I'll explain what that is. So we live with 5 monks and 5 of us monks and 1 novice. And we live in this building, 7,000 feet. There's nothing there. There's just Israel is the next mountain. So a few weeks ago we were seeing Israel starting the missiles to Iran. So so we made popcorn and we were watching on the balcony, just Israel starting, and then Iran, the fireworks, the collision was between during the fall of the Assad regime. The Assad regime had a lot of different military bases on the mountain. So every second, every minute, we can hear the planes. We can see the Israeli planes going over us, and then we just see, they're dropping here, bomb, bomb, bomb. All these military planes right next to the monastery. There was a military truck that had some technology or whatever, right next to our monastery. It was like this is the monastery, let's say. Let's say, the monastery is here, and the car was just outside the grass, right? And we could see the drone drop, the bomb dropping, and then the whole truck exploded, and full of that black smoke, right? I mean, obviously the monastery ship and stuff. So, I mean, for us, like, we live in peace with God, so we're not afraid of that. We've already died to this world, so we know we're going to paradise. So we don't have. I mean, we're trying to live a repentant life, to fall in rise, and asking God for His mercy, hoping that God will save us in this process of offering our life to God. So we have no fear, actually. So I will show you another. This is the monastery. So it's really nice because the clouds are below the monastery. Like the clouds are at the same altitude as the clouds. So it's really nice that when I walk outside, I'm walking inside the clouds. It's really nice experience. And sometimes the clouds are below us, so the monastery is on top of the clouds. So it's pretty cool. And it's really windy, it's really cold. So we have only electricity twice a day, from 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. So at that time, we wash our clothes, we shower. Otherwise, we don't have running water. We shower, we have Wi-Fi for 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening, because there's an extender, and then that's it. Right? And so it's really simple life. So you can see here, this is the heart of the monastery, the chapel. So you can see here, this is some of the monks. Here's some of the monks here. So how our day looks, from 3 to 5, we get up in the morning and we do our prayers in our cell. We pray in our rooms, in the monastic room. And at that time, we practice listening to the whole world, right? So for 2 hours. Then we go back to sleep. We don't sleep on bed, we sleep on the floor. I'll show you the room, one of the monk room. So this is the monk room. The bed is just for show. We don't actually sleep on the bed. So usually it holds our books and stuff during the day and stuff. But we sleep on the floor. You can see it's very simple. It's very simple. The monk really, all in his room, he has a prayer corner where he can pray and kneel and do prostrations. And then he has books and stuff he can read and write, and he can study, he can do translation. So it's very simple. Remember, my phone is connected. The phone is connected that time because there was no electricity for 30 minutes. So otherwise, we have no signal, no Wi-Fi, nothing. Right? We have to go down the mountain in order to get at least some kind of to go back to civilization. Right? So it's a very simple life. At 7 o'clock, so 6:30 we wake up again, we get ready. 7 o'clock is the first prayer. 7 to 8, 8:30, 7 to 8 basically. After that, then we have 30 minutes to relax a little bit, or to read, to write in our journals what we're going to do for the day, reflect. After that, then we will work. So what we will do for work, okay? I will show you one. So we have a lot of animals, so the first thing that we do is we go to our chickens and turkeys, we take eggs from them, we feed them. I have dogs, we have two two mom and a dad and the puppies. So last year we had 9 puppies, this year we have 6. So my dog is my job is, my obedience is I'm a dog trainer. So I train the dogs for a few months and then we sell them and we make money out of them. We also have sheep and goat as well. It's not our sheep and goat, but it's so in the monastery, it's a desert, there's nothing there. It's just our monastery and nothing else. But there's shepherds that are with their sheep and goats. So we have an agreement with them because we have drilled a well. So they can take our water for the animals and for the shepherd, and we can take the milk. So in the morning I go and milk the sheep and the goats and we get milk, and then from that we make cheese and deliver to live. And we also have a farm, garden, and then once a week the monk will we take turns cooking. We don't have any helpers, so I will be assigned to cook for 1 week, and then after that another brother will cook, and then we make very simple food, rice with some kind of vegetable, and we eat 2 times a day, lunch and dinner. Yeah. So I will show you one video. So these are just the animals. It worked last week. Okay, it's not working. I will just show you. So it's full desert. There's nothing. There's occasional we have wolves and coyotes and foxes and snakes and scorpions. It's like desert. We also work. So from 8:30 to 12 we work. So sometimes we do translations. We look at Syriac fathers and we translate some texts like liturgical prayer or books, and then we translate that into Arabic or English. In the language of the monastery, we speak Syriac. In the monastery and outside the monastery, we speak Arabic. So I had to become fluent in those languages and I was go there. So we make different things. We have different workshops. So like I made these by hand. Wood, we cut down wood, and then we make different religious items with wood, and then we sell them in town. Also prayer ropes. I also make prayer ropes. This is from my hand. So I will show you. Okay, so like these are different prayer ropes and bracelets. So, on the weekends now we get guests, so the bus people full of youth and people come. So we give talks, we give retreat, they ask questions. They can also buy from stuff as well. So we sell these bracelets. I make these bracelets and prayer ropes, and they buy it. It helps us to live in the monastery. We also have a workshop for woodworking as well. You can see one monk is carving wood. So we have 5 monks. One is a priest. The rest are just one is a monk, a deacon, like a full deacon, and the rest of us 3 are just monks. We used to be Chamachan before, and now we're just monks. So the monk priest, he was ordained for our monastery. We do Kurbana, we have Kurbana 3 times a day, and he leads the prayers and stuff. But the head of the monastery is not the priest; it's the monk deacon. So the monk priest has to kiss the monk deacon's hand in order to get a blessing, in order to start the services. And we have to get the blessing. We say Bhakti to each other. We call each other Abuna Father. We get each other's blessing in order to do anything. I want to do this. And we ask for blessing, and then say, "May you be blessed." Okay. You can see when there's electricity, the monk is using the machine to. Otherwise, we have to use sandpaper. Okay. Here, we also have candle making, so we make candles as well. So actually, we need candles because we don't have electricity. So like in the dark, we use candles to read, to cook food, dinner and stuff, especially in winter time. In church services, so you can see this is like hot wax. So this Chamachan is a novice. A novice means that before you're a monk, you're a novice, and then you learn how to become a monk. So you're discerning. Do I want to be a monk? Do I want to be a nun? So that it's a trial period. It usually lasts about from 1 to 3 years. So they're discerning, and they can leave at any time. They're not wearing this chemo that means you're a monk or a nun. They're just discerning. So now he's discerning what to do. he's been born and raised in Syria. He never left Syria. He's never seen the real world. He's just seen, the third world country of Syria. And he studied at seminary. So we told him, so we're sending him to Germany to live in the world. So we told him, go out in the world to date someone, to see if that's what your calling is, to look at the world, to see whatever. You shouldn't have any regrets when you become a monkey. Like for me, I have no regrets. I've done everything that I wanted in my life. I worked, I made money, I bought whatever I wanted. And yet, now I'm making $20 a month. I make $20 of my salary. And that's like the general salary for a Syrian person, $20 per month. And it's a very humble life. It's not enough to live a very luxurious life. It's a very simple life. And that's all I need. That's all we need. Here's our mom and dad. They're huskies. I don't know what they're doing. You can see kind of two huskies there. Here's a picture I made. These are 8 of our. There's one more behind. So 9 of our puppies. I told them to sit down. We speak Syriac to them, so they know Syriac. And I trained these puppies until they're strong, and then we give them and we sell them. I have more puppy pictures as well in the winter. So, and then at 12 o'clock, after we work, at 12 o'clock we have noon prayer, and after noon prayer, we have lunch. After lunch, we rest a little bit because our sleep during the night is not that much. So we rest for like an hour and a half, and then we get up, we pray, we read, for that. At 4 o'clock, we have evening prayer, and then after that, then we sit together. So this is our living room. You can see that we have a fireplace here, and we burn wood to keep warm. In our rooms, in our cells, we don't have heating, so we use 5 blankets. We have 2 thermals and 2. And remember, it's like 7,000. It's really cold, really snowy, really wintry. So it's really cold and really, but we survive. When we're very cold, we ask God to warm us. So it's a little struggle. So at this time, we talk. During the whole day, we really don't talk. At this time, after evening prayer, from 5 to 6:30, we talk. So that's the time we talk to each other, how our day is going, we share our struggles, we share what's on our heart, what we're learning, what we're reading, and we have a spiritual talk. Sometimes it's lighthearted, sometimes it's really deep, really, So we have talk for an hour and a half. Saturday nights we watch a film where we make popcorn. We don't, there's no microwave, so we have to make popcorn the old-fashioned way. But we watch a spiritual movie usually on the laptop. And we don't have a TV, but we download movies beforehand. So once a week, all of us we go down the mountain. So 6 days we live on the mountain, living this life. So after 6:30 to 7 p.m. is dinner. Then 9 p.m. is night prayer. That usually is like 1 hour sometimes. For Sunday, for special feasts and stuff, that can be like 2-3 hours. And then we go to sleep after it's 5 hours until the next morning. So one day a week we go down the mountain. It takes 45 minutes to go up the mountain by car, and like 30 minutes to go down the mountain. And then the seminary is at the bottom of the mountain, so we have 20 students there. So I teach once a week. I teach for 4 hours, 2 hours each, and I teach theology and different topics in theology, but in English language. So it's like I can help the students improve English. They're all Syrians, but also I can teach them theology, teach them different stories. It's a really nice class. Other monks also teach different subjects. One of our monks, he goes grocery shopping and stuff, so and then we go up again at the end of the day. We also have an orphanage, so I visit the orphans. We have a few girls, and a few young boys, and a few young girls. Some of them, their parents were killed during the war. Some of them have come from broken homes, like divorced parents, trauma and stuff like that. So also our students also have a lot of PTSD from just growing up in the war. So we do a lot of guidance counseling, just supporting them, loving them, tutoring them. I play games with the orphans. And then we visit the local families, see how they live. Our people live in real poverty there. imagine $20 a month for like a salary, so it's not enough to live. But they live but they have so much peace in their heart. Like you've never seen the most joyous people. They have nothing, but they have everything because they get everything from God, not from this world. So it's a very different life. So they encourage us rather than we encourage them. We try to pray for them, it's a blessing for them. They really respect monastic life. So in that way, we serve God, we serve the church, we serve the world. Yeah, I think those are pretty much it. Oh, that's cool. So you can see a little bit of the mountain. So you see there's like this full desert or something. This is the monastery. So this mountain is in Israel. Mount Hermon. Also, so I walk with the dogs every day, but I have to be careful because the Israelis are waging war. They put mines all over the place. So when I walk, I have to pray, be careful. Every day I see the mines, and we take some fencing and I put it around it so that we can walk on it. And every day, pretty much I see a mine that's never been discovered, and we put a fencing over it so that we don't walk on it. So. I'll show you something. Yeah. So it's the life of a monk. It purifies us, right? It purifies us. It helps us to let go and let God. It helps us to be simple and to rely on God. And sometimes, the brothers, even though they're monks, the devil will always try to divide them. Right? So why is he washing the dishes this way? Why is he walking like this way? And we have something called the confession of thoughts in monasticism. So I'll tell my brother, hey, I was really angry at you. You just walked this way. I mean, married people know like it's the same. You get really annoyed, and the devil is trying to divide the family, right? So it's very easy. So also in monastic life too, it's the same. But we have to say, my brother will save me. Even when he's annoying, he will save me, because this will make me more humble. To say I'm wrong and you're right. Sometimes the brothers will ask of you to do this. You're really tired, and they ask you to go to paint some of the rooms in the monastery. I'm like, at first I have 3 master's degree. I'm supposed to be doing, and then they're like, no, we're all the same. You have to clean. Like in your house, you have to clean toilets. You have to clean your bathroom. You have to cook. You have to clean up. You have to vacuum. This is life. Right? This is life. You have to be humble and serve. Right? It's all about love. How can I serve my brother? How can I love my brother in action? Right? Sometimes we have to, guests are coming. We have to do a bunch of stuff, serve a lot. Sometimes we're tired. We don't want to. Right? There's a story. There was a young man who came to the monastery and said, "I want to be a monk, but I want to pray the whole time." He said, "Okay, come to the." So they kept him in his room. The whole day he was there. And then he came out and he started yelling at the monks, "Why didn't you invite me to lunch, dinner? I'm hungry." And he said, "Oh, you just want to pray all day. You said you want to be like an angel, right? Angels don't eat, so you don't have to eat. For us monks, we're human beings. We have to work, we have to pray, we have balance. We work and then we eat and then we do all those things. Right? So as a monk, we don't pray all day. Of course, even when we're working, we pray. But we have to work. We can't just be like, I want to be in my room all day praying. It doesn't work like that. I have to serve my brother. I can't be selfish. I have to put what I want aside and to help my brother, to drop everything to help them, to do whatever they do. Right? And so all of us are called to live the life of martyrdom. Right? I told you there's either marriage, and that's also very difficult. That's a cross, and living family life, and becoming a monk, and doing that. Both are very difficult. But they will save us. They will purify us. They will help us to let go of they will try us. We will let go of our ego and become closer to God through that process. And if you just how to love it, your heart grows a lot in marriage. And if you let your heart open, your heart will grow as a husband, as a wife, as a parent. You'll see your heart growing immensely. And this is love. This is what God called us to love God and love others. And in monasticism as well, our heart grows a lot. we love, we learn how to love. And, yeah, so this is the call. Sorry that some of these videos were not working. This video here is just showing like, thousands of sheep and goats. The shepherd is on the donkey and he's just showing bringing the goats and the sheep along. Okay? And yeah, this is the winter. So the winter is really severe. Winter, there's a lot of. So anytime the bishop will call, come down from the mountain, come to the seminary, you can join us with the local families for Christmas and Easter. We tried for Christmas and New Year's. We tried to go up. We got stuck on the mountain. We had to go back. Because even though we have a pickup truck, all-wheel drive and everything, like there's no roads, right? So it's really difficult. So for me, I feel like I'm in paradise. I'm above the cloud. I feel like I'm in paradise because of my calling. Right? For others, it's not your calling. You feel like you're in prison. The same. And also. It's not an excuse like, I want to be single. I want to be single the rest of my life. That's not a calling. That's a passive way of living life. We have to actively die in order to live. Right? I told you this once. If you die, before you die, when you die, you will die. So you have to die in this life. You have to listen to God's will. You have to say, God, this is the wife. This is the husband appointed for me. These are the children appointed. They will save me. And it's going to be difficult, but I will be saved in this process. And the same thing in the gospel. It's difficult, but I will be saved in the life. So it's easy to think that you're a prisoner, to say, I'm a prisoner because it's not my will, it's their will, it's God's will. But remember, when we do our will only, we're the real prisoner. So it's freedom. God has given us freedom. God has given us free will. And when we're in Christ, it's freedom. Christ frees us from all the earthly cares, and we just love God and love others, and we feel like we're in paradise. So it's the same for me. It's the most blessed life I can ever live. As a monk too, I can't say like, I would be a bad husband. Therefore, I would be a bad. You cannot say that. If you're a bad husband, you'll be a horrible. You will make hell in the monastery. You will fight with everybody. Right? So the same way. We have to put aside our ego and say, I'm going to be the best husband I can be. I'm going to be the best wife I can be. I'm going to be the best mom I can be. The best mom I can be. The best parent I can be. Right? And doing so, you live the call. So these are just some thoughts that I have to share, some videos and pictures that I have to share. So, God bless you all, and thank you for listening to me. And may God guide you all.